Welcome to the Tin Dog Podcast, and more importantly, welcome to Season 4 of Doctor Who. We have a remixed soundtrack, of which I'm still not completely convinced, and we have 8.4 million viewers on BBC One, which isn't bad, considering the show itself started at 6:20 PM, a clear 40 minutes earlier than usual. Before I begin my review, I'd like to welcome all of the new listeners to the podcast who have subscribed since seeing this episode on TV. Welcome. Welcome to the world of podcasting. For those of you who don't know, I'd also like to say that the BBC have made the commentaries available as an extra track downloadable from iTunes. So all you have to do is go to iTunes, type in Doctor Who, and it's now number one. The number one Doctor Who podcast is the BBC Commentaries podcast, which sadly has knocked my podcast from number 5 down to number 6. Oh, the horror, I feel deeply upset. Anyway, on with the show. Before I watched Series 4's beginning, I made a small list of things that I really would like out of Series 4. Top of my list is, I'd like Donna to be so much better than she was when we saw her in The Runaway Bride. Another thing on my list was that I genuinely would like the Doctor to not hang around Earth quite so much. I also didn't want Rose's return to be something cheap. I wanted it to be huge. And that, well, we'll find out how I fare on all of those points later on, except for the first one, because wanting Donna to be better has resulted in me seeing Donna in this episode, and she just is better. Catherine Tate can act. She can act extremely well, and it would have been a crime not to let that shine through. Something that they do need to look out for, though, is any of the lines that happen to sound like variants on her catchphrases from her comedy programmes, because that's when the spell's broken. So number 1 on my list was have a better Donna, and so far, that's exactly what we have. The first episode of a new season, with the exception of Rose, is often the most clunky, the most difficult to orchestrate. It's as if Russell sat down and made himself a small shopping list of the things he needed to do with the episode. Number 1, get the Doctor to meet the new companion, and in this he succeeded very well. Number 2, set up story arcs, and for that we have Donna's throwaway line of all the bees seem to be going. Now the importance of the absence of bees in reality is extremely well noted elsewhere. If the bees vanish, the food chain is interrupted. If the food chain is interrupted, the human race could starve, because we all depend on the bees. I'm sure that will come back later. And of course the big one was at the very end of the episode, Rose's return. I have no idea how they managed to get that past the internet, the forums and everything like that, so that when he was sitting there and Rose's face appeared on the screen, the audience went, "Oh, nice." We knew she was back, but we didn't know she'd be back so early. How she seems to be wearing the same clothing that she was wearing in Doomsday, and how she seems to be able to vanish without any visible means of control, are questions I'm sure will be answered much later on. But at the moment, they're lovely, first-level mysteries. Perhaps the other universe doesn't want her, and they want her. It's pushing her back into our universe. Anything at the moment like that is merely conjecture. Another arc to watch out for in the future was mentioned on the BBC Commentaries podcast. Donna mentioned something that the art department inserted into the taxi about 11 minutes into the programme. Now I've frozen the video, had a look, and it seems to be the only thing that could have been put there by the art department would be a small sticker on the taxi front. which looks like it says Atmos. Obviously at the moment we don't know what that means, but it would be nice to make a note of it and see if that is something that comes out in the fullness of time. And so back to Russell's shopping list. Obviously he also wanted to have a cute toy that they could have on the market by Christmas. I think we can all agree that he covered that one quite well with the Adepoys. And of course with Donna comes a family. Yes, I know it all smells a bit like soap, but we're so used to the fact that every character has relationships that we just kind of have to let them go. Bernard Cribbins playing her grandfather, however, was fantastic. Nobody can be found who disliked that performance. It was powerful. It was exactly what is needed in a performance in Doctor Who. Its heart is completely in the right place. Bernard is very old school, and we know he appeared in Dalek's Invasion of Earth movie, which of course is or isn't canon depending on your point of view. Most people think it isn't. But let's not bother discussing that right now. What we need to discuss is how good Bernard was, and I am so glad he's coming back. Next on the checklist, of course, is the They Must Have an Adventure. The adventure itself, story-wise, is a bit too similar to something along the lines of Invasion of the Bane seen in Sarah Jane Smith. Not necessarily a bad thing, but as people have pointed out, even that storyline is a little bit slim-tastic. And so they have their lovely little adventure. Sarah Lancashire plays the character clearly based on Super Nanny, even down to the glasses and the way of standing, despite the fact that the whole Eva Peron hand-holding thing is just a little bit odd. The overriding alien plan smacks more of something that you would see on QVC than anything else. Yes, you too can lose weight. The fat just walks away. Simply take one of these pills once a day. Remember, of course, I am available for voiceover and radio work to advertise practically anything you've got in mind. As a small side note, the first photographs of the Adepoys were released on April the 1st in the Radio Times, leading a lot of Doctor Who fans to think, is this an April Fool on behalf of the BBC? And then the clips were released, and we know that the BBC is a little bit strapped for cash, so we knew straight off that in fact it was real. But it is nice to know that that is the refuge of some Doctor Who fans out there. One thing that I did notice in this was that the Shadow Proclamation mentioned in the Christopher Eccleston story Rose was mentioned in passing. But it appeared that the Shadow Proclamation were actually a bunch of people or an alien race, rather than just something that had been signed. I invoke the Shadow Proclamation, as opposed to he's called in the Shadow Proclamation. A small thing, but well worth coming back to at a later date. One thing that I have thought about, that no one else seems to have speculated on, is that are the Adepoys actually young Sontarans? I know this is a comedic thing if you look at it, but also count the fingers. See that they have no necks, they are quite dumpy. They wave not in the same way as Sontarans, and I know the Adepoys are from a certain royal family, and Sontarans are just clones. But as they all look the same, it would be nice if later on the fact that the Doctor didn't kill the creatures comes back to bite him on, well, any posterity he has. This month I've been trying to enter the SFX magazine competition to win a Dalek. There were 29 questions, each question giving you one letter of the alphabet that you needed to rearrange into an anagram of something to do with Daleks. The small clue would also be that if you put the episode answers in the correct chronological order that they were broadcast in Doctor Who stories, you would then be able to work it out. There was one or two answers that I had issues with, and I promptly sat down with my little post-it notes, put them all in order, and ended up with something that's not even remotely English. Either I've made a terrible mistake and stand absolutely no chance whatsoever of even being able to enter, or the answer wasn't actually in English. This isn't that important, but I just need to say that there is no way I'll be winning that Dalek at all. And so next week's Doctor Who is on at an even different time. We're not sure when, we're not sure why. I for one would like Doctor Who to be on 7 o'clock again, but at least I'm glad it's just on. We all remember a time when it wasn't. I'll leave you now, and speak to you again next week after we've watched episode 4.2. It's good to be back. Be seeing you. Come with me.
Thrill is in the chase, never in the capture.
There's nowhere to run. Show yourself.
This is the spark of life.
I just want a mate.
You're not mating with me, sunshine. Being with you, I can't tell what's right and what's wrong anymore.
It's better that way.
I do not understand, miss.
Why'd you say miss? Do I look single?
Yes! I demand you tell me who you are.
This has certainly been a most entertaining evening.
You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.